Hello, friends. My name is Joe Irwin Bettner, and this is the Eyes on Oklahoma podcast. We appreciate you for joining us, making us a part of your day. And on today's episode, the voice of OU football, the voice of OU men's basketball, and most importantly for this episode, the voice of OU baseball, Toby Rowland, joins the program to discuss what was an unbelievable run by Skip Johnson Sooners, coming out of nowhere to get through a regular season gauntlet of Big 12 baseball, win the Big 12 tournament, win the Gainesville Regional, win the Blacksburg Super Regional in 3 games, get to Omaha, win their first 3 games, get to the championship series, fall short against a pretty good Ole Miss team that did a lot of the same things as far as peaking at the right time, just getting red hot exactly when you want to. But still, an incredible run for Oklahoma baseball. This was a lot of fun to keep up with, and Toby Rowland was a big part of that as he calls the games from the radio booth, was there every step of the way. And so wanted to catch up with him, learn what it was like watching this team literally just grow up before our eyes, learn how to win, and get to this biggest stage that they haven't been on in quite some time. So really fun conversation. Don't want to waste too much of your time. Just want to remind you all, Eyes in Oklahoma, the podcast is available on all major podcast platforms. And if you're using that Apple Podcast app, we would greatly appreciate a 5-star rating and review. It helps get the word out about the show. And if you're not already subscribed to the newsletter, we put out free newsletters Monday and Friday. EyesOnOklahoma.com is where you can subscribe. So with that said, here's my conversation with Toby Rowland. How's it going, Toby?
It's going good, Joe. How are you today?
Doing good, man. It's been you've been in my life a lot recently, just keeping up with OU baseball and hearing you on the radio call. I mean, there are probably no sports that I feel like are consumed. And I'm not just saying this because you're on the podcast right now. I feel like most sports are consumed better via radio, or at least having that component. And hearing your baseball call for OU through this pretty magical postseason run. Is that a fair magical postseason run?
Absolutely. Yeah, very fair.
What was the last few months like for you? As I know you're a huge baseball guy. This had to be a dream for you as well.
It ranks right up there with, it might be the favorite thing I've done since having this job at OU. I do love baseball. I love all sports, but I grew up listening to more baseball than anything. Cincinnati Reds fan and everything, going to 89ers games when I was a kid. We moved up by Cincinnati when I was in high school. I used to listen to Reds games all the time. And I always watched the College World Series. Every year I've watched the College World Series. And, it's just something in my brain that was magical about it. It's summertime, so you're at home and you can watch the whole thing. And, the dog piles. And I remember the 1994 team so vividly. I've never been to Omaha, and I've had a couple of opportunities in the last 10 years in this job to go, but I vowed that I'm not going until I can be on the mic. I'm not going until OU is in it. And so for this to happen it's just glorious, and what a team, what a run to be, middle of the season, kind of just treading water to catching fire. And then the last month of the season, just extraordinary game after extraordinary game. They win the Big 12 tournament. They go on the road before that and beat TCU. They go on the road and beat Tech. They sweep through the Big 12. They go to Gainesville. They have that long rain delay and come back afterwards and win. And Virginia Tech with coming down to a game 3. And then not only did they get to Omaha, which is what you always talk about, is just get to Omaha, right? Not only did they get there, but they got there and won a couple of games. And I'm sure Sooner fans were like I was, kind of looking around going, hey, now, they got a chance to win this thing with the way they're playing right now. So it was quite a thrill. It was really, really fun to see a team come together like that. You know what it reminded me of is the 2000 football team, kind of from off the radar, no injuries in 2000. They gelled perfectly, and they were greater than the sum of their parts. And I feel like that's what this baseball team was this year. They came out of nowhere, no injuries really to speak of until the College World Series with Squires. They definitely just gelled together and became greater than the sum of their parts. And It'll be remembered as one of the most magical runs in OU baseball history, I think.
To go back just a little bit, 2020, Oklahoma baseball looks very much like they're on their way to being national seed. It's obviously you never know if they're actually going to get. I mean, look at Tennessee this season. You never know what's going to happen. But in a way, this run just really feels almost like making up for that lost season. And I don't know if you're a karmic guy or at all, but just looking back at that 2020 team, and I'm not afraid to admit I love Skip Johnson. He's great to deal with. I mean, if there's any guy that's going to happen to, like, I'm glad that he got kind of a redo in a sense. And I want to ask you, just looking at the trajectory of this program and looking at kind of how the season started, at what point did you think we've got something here? Maybe you're not thinking they're going to go to the championship series in the MCWS, but when did you think that this team might be able to make some noise in the postseason?
I thought they were pretty good, early in the season. I thought they had good pieces, with Jake Bennett and Peyton Graham. And, I thought they were pretty good. When they went to Tulsa and beat Oklahoma State on a Tuesday night, and I saw them measured next to OSU, I came away from that game saying, not only did OU beat them tonight, Oklahoma's as good of a baseball team as Oklahoma State is. And in recent years, that's a big thing to say because OSU has kicked them around pretty good for the last decade, really. And then they went to Amarillo not long after that, and they played Texas Tech on a Tuesday night with the wind blowing out about 40 miles an hour, and they beat them. And they didn't just beat them; they outmatched them. They hit 5-6 home runs that night. And I remember driving home from Amarillo going, I think Oklahoma's as good as Texas Tech is, which is, if you've been around OU baseball the last few years, is a pretty big thing to say. So the second half of the season, they started looking like an NCAA tournament team to me. I thought if they can not mess up against Kansas and Kansas State, pick off one of these last three series, they're going to have a pretty good resume. I think this team could get back to the tournament. It wasn't until the last weekend of the regular season when they went out to Lubbock, and Texas Tech, if you remember, was coming off a sweep of Oklahoma State and Stillwater. They had moved into the top 5 in the country. They were in line to be a super regional host, a national seed, and had a chance to win the Big 12 outright. Texas Tech had all this at stake. And it was a frenzy. I mean, that place is always a zoo, but it was an extra zoo that weekend because they were so excited about their team. And OU went in there and beat them. 2 out of 3, kind of made them like it. They didn't back down. They weren't bullied. If anything, they were the bully a little bit. I haven't seen that in a long time, if ever, from an OU baseball team to go into a place like Lubbock and push them around and not be scared of the moment, intimidated at all. And I remember coming out of that series going, this team's not only is this an NCAA tournament team, but they might be able to go a little ways. Like they might be able to win a regional or something. I don't think it ever, really sunk in that it could be a College World Series team until we got to Virginia Tech. Winning in Florida was a pretty major accomplishment to get sent on the road and to beat an SEC team like that. But you got to go face the number 4 national seed in Virginia Tech. And again, that first game, when you see them next side by side with Vatech, and you say, they're as good as these guys, So that was kind of when I thought, all right, College World Series. So I guess I didn't give you a very good answer. There were stages to this year where I went from thinking they're pretty good to this could be a tourney team to this is a team that could win some teams in the tourney or win some games to this could be a College World Series team. And I think that maybe mirrors a little bit what Sooner fans felt as this year went along. Maybe even the team themselves.
I was going to say, I think you answered the question pretty well. And I think that kind of looking back over the course of the season, this is a conference that I think in a very similar way to men's basketball, I would even throw football in there. It is there's a lot of parity. There's a lot of good teams. It feels like it's such a cliche, like there's no weekends off when you're playing in Big 12 baseball. And the way that they kind of navigated that, and you kind of get new information each and every week. It just, as it changes, they continually look like that team. It almost to a sense, and not that I was skeptical of how good OU baseball could be. It just, I kind of waiting to see, like, is this going to fall apart? But
yeah,
it just never kind of did. And you get into Omaha. Actually, I do want to ask you a little bit about Florida. You had the long delay in Florida, didn't you?
Yeah. 5.5 hour rain delay. Yeah.
When those things kind of happen, I'm always just kind of the person who's just like, this feels like this is going to change the trajectory of this. And it obviously went Oklahoma's favor. They get through that delay. Sometimes just like when there's big weather things, it kind of changes. But just as you saw this team, and kind of what I'm getting at mostly is just when you saw this team go through adversity, you just being as close as you were, the access that you had, how did they respond throughout the course of the season? Because like I said, Big 12, not an easy conference by any means, one of the better baseball conferences in the country. What was OU's demeanor like throughout the season as they kind of battled through those highs and lows?
Completely unchanged, completely unbothered by their atmosphere, their opponent, whether they won or lost. And, they played in some big atmospheres this year. That game in Tulsa had 7,000 plus fans. Every game in Stillwater had over 7,000 fans. The game in Amarillo had over 7,000 fans. Every game in Arlington against Texas, I think there was 20 to 25,000 for the tournament total, or for the weekend total. Fort Worth, big crowds. Lubbock, big crowds. And all of those on the road, they didn't seem to care at all. Even when they went to Gainesville and Virginia Tech and at the College World Series, they didn't seem rattled, phased. You would see them before a game or after a game, in the team meeting room. And you wouldn't know if they had just played Virginia Tech in the Super Regional or if they had just played ORU on a Tuesday night. They joked around. They seemed the same. Nobody ever looked nervous until that first championship game. And I think they got rattled. First time I've seen them rattled all year in the first Ole Miss championship game. And I'll be honest, like the crowds all week leading up to that had been great. Like there were a lot of OU fans there. I would say equal OU Notre Dame. Maybe there was a few more A&M than OU, but the OU fans were very loud. It was nothing remarkable all week about the matchups that Oklahoma was in from a fan perspective. Then they win and they're going to the championship series, and all of a sudden there's a flood of reaction on Twitter and social media and everything. Hey, I'm coming. Everybody, who all's coming? And I'm getting excited. I think the team's getting excited that, hey, this thing is about to, like, we're going to have a ton of OU fans here. And then they go through the hotel lobby to go to the stadium, and the Hilton in downtown Omaha is packed. OU fans, there's the band, there's Mr. OU. They're swinging from the rafters to send the team off, and they're high-fiving everybody. We've never seen anything like that. You know how this goes. They play in front of some home crowds that are less than 200 people. And so now they're excited, and they get to the stadium, and that first pitch happens and the place starts to fill up. You don't even really realize it when the place is filling up because they both share a red color. And the first pitch starts to take place, and there's the first roar of the game. And I remember going, holy cow, like, I think there's 20,000 Ole Miss fans. Where did all the OU fans go? And they were there. I mean, there was probably 4,000 or 5,000 OU fans there, but it was 20,000 plus Ole Miss fans. And I thought there'd be more Ole Miss. I didn't expect that. And I don't think the team did either. And I think they were a little unnerved by it for the first couple of innings when they fell behind in game one. Peyton's throwing the ball away. Jackson Nicholas spiked a throw to first base. Jake Bennett had 3 wild pitches all year. He had 3 wild pitches in the first 2 innings. It's the first time all season that I had watched them in any atmosphere, including Omaha, and said, they look a little nervous to me right now. Now, I think they got over it. They played well the second half of that game, and I thought the whole second half, game 2, was a fantastic baseball game. But back to your question, I think they reflected the personality of their head coach. Skip Johnson is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, man. I mean, he wakes up happy as a lark. He wants to win. He's a fierce competitor, but if he doesn't, he's going to wake up tomorrow happy as a lark, you know? And I think over time, they kind of took on that personality. And so that, I don't know what part of their success formula that was, but it was somewhere in there.
I was about to ask if you thought that that demeanor maybe starts with Skip Johnson, because he's one of the few coaches that sometimes when you're covering a team, and not to say like a losing team, but when a team loses, you're not really looking forward to talking to the head coach. And Skip Johnson, to me at least, is not one of those coaches. He takes it in stride. He takes, the adversity in stride, but also just, you don't see him get too excited even when they have gone on the run that they did. Despite, I think you hit the nail on the head, but just kind of you bringing up Ole Miss, Oklahoma. I think we all are kind of thinking the same thing this season. In a few years, this is going to be an SEC baseball team, and pretty good impression to, that first year after the announcement to go to the championship series. As you look at the trajectory of this baseball program, does it feel like the future is fairly bright? Is this a one-off run, or do you think that Skip really has something here and can keep it rolling?
I mean, I firmly believe the latter. And I think this has an opportunity to be a year that is a real springboard for this program. No, so this is a proud, tradition-rich program. We were in Omaha with 4 SEC teams: Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Arkansas, and Auburn. 3 of those 4 are big-time programs. None of them had ever won a national championship before. And Oklahoma's won 2. And this is 11 College World Series now. I mean, this is a big-time, tradition-laden college baseball program. And for a decade, they've kind of, meandered. My first 2 years on the job, the 2012 and 2013 baseball season, those were super regional teams. They almost got to Omaha with Jonathan Gray and Dylan Overton, Matt Oberste. Those were Max White. Those were some really good teams. But since then, just getting to the tournament has been a chore. And so this felt like a year in which it feels like a moment for this program in which it could be a real trampoline for them. I think, I hope you'll see the recruiting ramp up. I think the transfer portal interest is ramped up. Everybody who's a pitcher wants to work with Skip Johnson. When you see the guys he's churning out, the Cade Cavallis and the Levi Praters and the Cade Hortons and the Jake Bennett's and on and on and on. I think that probably because of this, we've already seen some money come in to try to help that stadium get refurbished to an SEC caliber stadium where it needs to be. So all of that together, the fan interest is reignited. So money is flowing in to try to get the stadium going. Recruiting picks up. Transfer portal interest picks up. The general attitude, the swagger of the program is back. And now whenever they, go into next season and whenever they go into the SEC, it's not just, hey, we're getting Texas and, oh, by the way, we're getting Oklahoma too. Oklahoma goes in there saying, we played for the national championship 2 years ago. We're no slouch here. We're to be reckoned with. And so I think all those are great things for this program.
Looking forward to seeing where it goes, because it has been kind of a unique in a sense that Oklahoma, and this is the spoils of following Oklahoma athletics as a whole, is there's not really too many teams and we've kind of seen it a lot this year with the baseball team, women's tennis, but there's a lot of established programs, and to kind of see the rebirth of one, especially one that you mentioned, has won 2 national titles, has a long, tradition rich legacy. It's been really fun to watch. You mentioned this has been, the going through the NCWS has been, one of the best parts of your career. you've covered a Final Four. You've covered in men's basketball. You've done college football playoff for Oklahoma football. What's next on the bucket list?
We got to win one of these. That's
fair.
what's next for me.
That's fair.
four college football playoff games, Final Four, and a College World Series. So I got to get some of that Chris Plank magic to rub off on me a little bit, and we got to win one of these. That's, there are some arenas out there and some places that would be cool to call games, but nobody's had it better than us at being on the big stage. OU consistently, it seems like in every sport, is on the big stage. And I would love to be on the mic when we finish one of these off. So that's it. I mean, Omaha was a big deal. It was always kind of the thing now for 11 years that I've said, yeah, but I've never been to Omaha. We've been to the Rose Bowl. We've been to the Orange Bowl. We've been to the Final Four. Yeah, but I've never been to Omaha. And I've been to Omaha now. And I got to be there for a week and a half, almost 2 weeks. And it was awesome. And I can't wait to go back. But next on the bucket list is we got to win one of these.
I think plenty of OU fans will hope that wish comes true for you, Toby. So I appreciate your time, sir. This was a lot of fun. I love getting into the kind of the experience of, especially I did this with Chris Plank a few weeks ago with OU softball, and it's fun getting to hear you because you're there. You're there in the moment. You get to be with the team, pretty much nonstop, and it's really fun to follow.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks for listening. Thanks for having me on, but thanks for listening to the broadcast. And there's nothing that is more thrilling in this job than to look out on the crowd or sometimes peek over in the writer's room and see some people with their headphones in, and that people are really paying attention out there. And so it's been a great ride. I know there was a whole lot of Sooner Nation that got plugged in for baseball the last month or so, and I'm really looking forward to seeing next year what that turns into. I hope we get some bigger crowds and some real reignited fervor for Oklahoma baseball because of this. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you, Toby.